Welcome back, everybody. Well, as I'm sure you've either read or reacted to or seen some sort of TikTok video about, last month, Joss Whedon, creator of the Buffyverse, former Firefly showrunner, and director of the 2012 Avengers movie, did an interview. And yeah, it was quite something. Honestly, I don't know what he was trying to achieve with it, but I doubt it had the effects that he wanted. In the interview, he talked about his empire kind of crumbling, slipping through his fingertips. I'm kind of paraphrasing. He didn't say quite that. But this really is an interview with somebody unraveling. And I gotta admit, it's kind of fascinating to watch. At the beginning of the article, the interviewer and writer, Leela Shapiro, reflected on the amount of support Joss had received from the early days of the internet. His interaction with Buffy fans via message boards and showing up at their early Buffy fan meetings. In 2006, Joss was awarded a Men of the Front Lines of Feminism from the Equality Now organization. At the time, this was actually a huge achievement. There had been very few female protagonists, but on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she was front and center. Buffy was very much a teenage girl dealing with teenage girl problems, but Buffy was also extremely powerful and dealt death to a number of evildoers, including vampires, of course. The show was pretty groundbreaking and had one episode called The Body that dealt with death of a loved one so earnestly, it almost had me flashing back to when my father and my sister had passed away. It was really that spot on. Joss had also gained a devoted cult following with the epic space western Firefly. This show lasted a season, but it also spawned a sequel movie called Serenity. A trademark of Whedon's writing is that the villain had qualities that were relatable, and the heroes could also have a major dark side. This gave his work nuance, which at the time in the late 90s and early 2000s was missing from a lot of television. You could see Joss's influence in later shows like Supergirl, and one could really say the entire Arrowverse as a whole. The Vampire Diaries, Doctor Who, I am of course talking about New Who, not the old stuff, and Torchwood. Joss Whedon's touch was also all over the 2012 Avengers movie. Effectively, this movie had turned no one's favorite villain into a bona fide superstar with the character of Loki. Between Joss's writing and Tom Hiddleston's brilliant performance, Loki very quickly turned into a fan favorite. 2012 must have been a great year for Joss Whedon. His work was fully appreciated, and he managed to make what is now the 5th largest movie in box office history. He maintained great relationships with Marvel Studios and the Disney Corporation as a whole. He even got to make a little passion film based on the Shakespeare classic Much Ado About Nothing, with his regulars, Alexis Denisov, Amy Acker, and the ever so cool Nathan Fillion. But in 2015, we got the first chink in the armor of the Joss Whedon empire with the under-critical performance of Avengers Age of Ultron. On the whole, the movie wasn't that bad, but it was clear there was a disconnect in some of the story elements. In later interviews, we discovered the studio added scenes to help set up future Marvel movies, Thor in a cave with the Infinity Stones specifically. This studio meddling apparently made Joss feel like he had been beaten down and exhausted. Whedon opted out of any future Marvel movies, and the studio decided to go with the Russo brothers for their final 2 entries of the Avengers movies. The Russo brothers had proven themselves by directing Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and Civil War, respectively. At some point, Joss started having conversations with Warner Brothers Studio. At this point in time, Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad had been released, to mixed reviews. Wonder Woman and the Justice League were on the horizon. Also in 2017, there was the tragic death of Zack Snyder's daughter, Autumn. Zack understandably stepped away from the Justice League production. Whedon was originally hired to oversee the post-production, but either at Joss's or the studio's insistence, massive rewrites and reshoots were done in hopes of giving the film a lighter tone, kind of like a Marvel movie. Of course, we all know how that turned out. After the critical and box office disappointment of the 2017 theatrical cut of the Justice League, or also known as the Justice League, any hopes of a sequel or the planned trilogy were squashed. In fact, it could be argued we are still feeling the ramifications of that film today with a disorganized DCEU and the studio's goal of resetting the canon timeline. Also, this ended up affecting another DC project with the Ben Affleck-directed Batman movie. Ben famously did not enjoy working on the Justice League after Joss took over the project. This ultimately influenced his decision to step away from his own solo film. I think that really sucks. I find Affleck to be the best on-screen Batman so far. But back to Joss. Another event that happened in 2017, Joss's ex-wife, Kai Cole, published an open letter about Whedon. She referred to him as a hypocrite preaching feminist ideals. Kai also states, this all happened as Whedon was cheating on her. He admits to having affairs with his co-stars, but he says he had to sleep with them, and he was powerless, saying that he feared if he didn't have sex with them, he would always regret it. Yeah. In 2020, Justice League actors Ray Fisher and Gal Gadot made claims about mistreatment. Fisher describing Joss's behavior as being gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. Gadot alleged Whedon had threatened her career, stating he would make her career miserable. Later on, other actors like Buffy and Angel star Charisma Carpenter accused Joss of having a history of being casually cruel, saying that after she became pregnant, heading into Angel's fourth season, Joss called her fat and asked if she was going to keep it. Yeah, not good stuff. Buffy's star, Sarah Michelle Gellar, pledged her support of the victims of Joss's abuse. Things more or less stayed quiet since the 2020 interview, until Joss agreed to sit down for this one. Some other things that were revealed during the interview was Joss Whedon thought Ray Fisher's Cyborg. The storyline didn't make any sense, and he even went so far as to say Fisher's acting was bad. He also accused Gal Gadot of not understanding him because English was not her first language, and his way of speaking can be a bit flowery. This is such a great example of Joss blaming external circumstances for his current state of affairs rather than looking within himself. And his own behavior, and taking accountability for it. Let us look at Joss blaming Ray Fisher for being a bad actor, and the Cyborg storyline not making sense. This would be a possible explanation, except for the fact that most of the public now has seen the Zack Snyder version of the Justice League. To me, the Cyborg story arc was truly one of the best parts of the movie. Also, I am no director, and I'm, at best, an amateur actor, but I thought Ray did an amazing job as Cyborg. As for Gal Gadot's accusations, I think it's a little douchey to blame Gal for not understanding him. Even though Gal is not a native English speaker, she seems pretty adept at it, or at least to the point where she can understand when she's being threatened. When it comes down to the Whedon legacy being destroyed, well, honestly, Whedon's projects, looking back on them, just kind of hit differently now. I do think Whedon is capable of writing great characters for women, especially during the Buffy, Angel, and Firefly era. Even in 2012, Black Widow was a pretty well-written character. But we've also seen that Joss Whedon fetishizes his heroines. For example, let's look at that infamous scene where Black Widow interrogates Loki in the 2012 Avengers movie. This is shot from behind Natasha Romanoff, like directly behind her. In fact, her butt is the focal point of the scene. And he repeats this again in the Justice League with Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. So for a man that, quote unquote, was recognized at one point as a feminist ally and awarded as such, where did he learn about feminism? Well, from the article, it appears he learned from two different sources. Apparently his mother, who he describes as being extraordinary, inspirational, tough, and cool, and sexy. The other was in college, where he discovered he was attracted to strong women and would hurt them by, and this is his quote, usually by sleeping with them and ghosting or whatever. This Jekyll and Hyde behavior, he felt, gave him an advantage over women in his college because I have seen the enemy and he is in my brain. Yet again, another quote from Joss. I think it's likely this has always been Joss. And the audience is now realizing it. All except for Warner Brothers, who not only condone this behavior, but may have encouraged it. I mean, we are talking about the same studio that fired Johnny Depp and keeps Amber Heard employed. But that'll be a video for another time. If you enjoy my content, please give a like, thumbs up, sub, whatever you want to do. I would appreciate it. And as always, fare thee well, my friends, and take care. Cue the music.